It's just us. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Small crowd.
And so, hi everyone. Welcome to Type Talks. Today we have ESTPs live. We have a small, cozy group, and I'll let Chris introduce himself and everyone else. And so, Chris, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Yeah, so I'm a orthopedic sports massage therapist in Southern California, and I was typed by Objective Personality as SETI, consume, sleep, blast, play, which makes me the most introverted type in their system, which made a lot of sense. It was kind of interesting. And then with the Enneagram, I think I'm 8 wing 7, self-preservation and sexual. So I think that's just kind of introduce myself.
That's awesome. Yeah. Flow State, Taylor, and also myself has typed Chris as well as ESTP. So cool fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Taco?
Yeah, I'm ESTP Baaf. I'm in the Netherlands. What else? Yeah, I like race rowing, trading, tinkering around with machines, bikes, cars, you name it. It's mechanical. I like it. I'm a mechanical engineer, by the way, for Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering. And I like typology a lot. So I've been consuming quite a bit of YouTube videos and yeah, all this kind of stuff. I can just take a name for the whole day. So consume first for me. Sleep last, by the way, Chris.
Awesome. And Spencer?
Yeah, I'm Spencer. I'm an ESTP 7 wing 8. I live near Houston, Texas. And for those who don't know, Houston has a massive power outage. So apologize if I'm coming in and out. Just let me know. I'm connected on my phone cellular service. So yeah, just let me know if I need to repeat something or anything like that.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on amidst the power outage. That's commitment.
Yeah.
And so Mariana says hi to all her SEDOM counterparts. Hey, Mariana.
Hey, Mariana.
Yeah. And so my first question to you all is, it seems like a lot of you are Enneagram 7s or 8s. And so I was wondering about your experience as your Enneagram type and being an ESTP. If anyone wants to start.
Yeah, I can start. That was an interesting conversation with when I had talked to Taylor, because after I OP, like they were over the phone, they already kind of typed me through my video, so I wanted to kind of interact with somebody. So I didn't think I was an 8, and he kind of said that too. And I think with ESTPs, since there's a kind of a chillness to us too, but as soon as he kind of broke down some of the the fights or the triggers in my life, like I can be really intense when I'm cornered, or when it's like maybe a TI conflict, or someone's trying to push like an idea down my throat that I think is just not logically consistent, or when they're very forceful with it, like it can really get out of hand if someone's really aggressive with me. So, and I don't know, especially when I was younger, I got in a lot of fights. And as I've gotten older, that's obviously that's changed for me. But it's it took me a while to accept that I'm probably an 8. So yeah. But I think with ESTJs, it's probably a little bit easier to see that, or maybe an ENTJ who's the TE is so much more aggressive. So at least in just kind of a extroverted way.
That is super cool. How about you, Taco? What is your experience as an 8 wing 7 ESTP? Does it match? Are some things different?
For me, it has always been extremely difficult to be told what to do. So already at the high school, yeah, that was really problematic to have to be in class every day. I skipped a lot of lessons, really many. One time 40 in a month, and was almost kicked out that school. I did 3 high schools in 4 years, so that was just a tough time for me. But also to work for corporations. I work for a big company with thousands of people. You always have a boss, and unless you're the CEO, but then still you have the supervisory board. But I always had managers, and the best ones just left me alone allowed me to do what I'm good in, and the ones who were trying to control me, yeah, there was always conflict, and that's tough. And yeah, it's. I know it's not good for your career, but I cannot resist. I have to go against it. If they start telling me stuff, I go against it. It's natural. It's too strong to fight. Let's say that way.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that.
Absolutely. So that is a big EP thing as well. When people say like they don't like to be controlled, it's also the freedom fixation. They call it in personality hacker. So it's a sign that you're meeting an EP. So that's pretty cool. And so Spencer, what's your experience as a 7-wing-8 ESTP?
Yeah, so I think for us, we see the world as kind of like a playground, but I think not in the traditional sense where people are like, oh, yo, he's an ESTP, he just wants to go party and do all this crazy stuff. But I think leveraging our TI, we just want to think through things and, you know, how do things make sense? And I think we're very unbiased when we approach it. You know, unlike TE, where I feel like they go in with like a very structured attitude. For us, it's basically, you know, whatever we see the reality is the reality. So, you know, I kind of leverage that I did energy trading for a while. Am I good, by the way, on mic and stuff?
Yeah.
You're
That's
good.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
I like the trading part.
Okay, great. Yeah, great. So I was in energy trading for a while. And it was great, but I realized like kind of being controlled by boss and all that or whatever is just not what I wanted to do. So I'm going more on like a sales route. I'm getting my master's in marketing and sales. And I think it's going to be a much better fit for me. And we'll see what happens. But again, I think we view the world as something we want to enjoy and we want to bring others into it. It doesn't need to be structured unless we think it needs to be with our TI, but it doesn't have to be. So I think that's what kind of separates the 7-wing-8 versus the 8-wing-7.
Yeah, agreed. I also think it's a J versus P thing in general too. I hear a lot of ESTPs. They'll tell me that what separates them from a TE Dom is that the TE Dom will go in with a plan and with a structure, whereas the ESTP will go in just with like a blank slate, trying to deal with whatever's coming at them in the moment. So yeah, excellent. And so the first question is by Mariana. And she asks, do you feel like you relate more to ENTPs with your TI or ESFPs with your SE?
Yeah, we have
I
one
feel like
one who's, which is cracking quite a bit. I'm not sure if it's yours, Joyce, but my SE is quite sensitive to that one. But
I think
on the question from Mary, I know a lot of ENTPs, and I have a 90-year-old ENTP son. Oh, that's better. So the mic is on mute now. And I really relate to their TI, but the SE and E is a bit of a conflict sometimes because they come with these like 1,000 crazy ideas, and I immediately look at it from a practical standpoint. And sometimes I think, yeah, that's not going to work. And I say that, and then they're disturbed because you disturb the NE process. So I learned now how to go with them, with the flow basically, and to appreciate all their ideas and to see it more as a kind of brainstorming session, and that works out really well.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Definitely.
For me, I actually love. I don't think I've met too many ENTPs, but I feel like I get along with them better than with the ESFPs. The FI feels a little bit, I don't know, too restrictive. They kind of they don't feel as free flowing with the TI, I think, because I kind of like the fact, just the free flowing conversation and the just kind of mischievous thing. Like I really like that. Like the ESFP is, you know, very fun in a more SE realm, but as far as kind of maybe because I'm more more introverted type, I guess maybe I kind of like the exchange of ideas and just kind of the kind of maybe the humor they have too. But as far as maybe if I was hiking or something like that, I would rather be with an ESFP, or at a party or something like that. But ENTPs are probably really fun at parties too. So
It's a bit dependent on the situation, because my mom is an ESFP, and it was really great because always adventure, great vacations. We did a lot of fun stuff, and so then you related the SE, and at another moment, my father was an ISTP, so I relate a lot to his dominant TI, and it's not that you always basically are in the same kind of mode. Sometimes it's really cool to go outside and to have fun at the beach or something, and then they do SE stuff. And you don't need to analyze everything at that moment. So, well, if you at the University of Technology, that was way more TI environment. So I also had a housemate in ENTP, and we were discussing TI things the whole day. So it's a bit dependent on what kind of situation you are. I cannot just make a choice. There are times also in race rowing, I would always go for an ESFP because they push really hard, while the ENTPs are typically not the best race rowers. So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense in that situation for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I'm wondering, what does the SE-DOM ESTP see as strengths and weaknesses in other people?
Ooh. I guess it would just have to be with the SETI, people who are lazy, people who are not kind of logically consistent. For me, since I'm a little bit older, I feel like my NI is a little bit more developed. So kind of on that axis, when I see people who are kind of scatterbrained, or kind of jump from one thing to the next, maybe that's just me getting a little bit older and my NI being more developed, where I see that pretty fast now when someone's kind of really excited about an idea or a goal and they kind of jump from one thing to another. So
very cool.
For me, the question was a bit too general, because I like to hire talent, and for every role, basically, you need different strengths. It's unless, of course, you're in a rowing boat, but even in a rowing boat, the stroke position requires different skill sets than, for example, a 7 or a bowman. So, yeah, I think if you're young, you don't appreciate some others because you don't recognize the strengths. For me, FI is very difficult to recognize as a strength, for example. And somebody who would not push to the limit, who would give up, I would find them extremely weak, because then you have the combination of an SE DOM with an 8-wing-7 Enneagram, and then you really think somebody is just mentally weak. And it is, if you are more into typology, you understand better the different strengths, and also the skill sets which go with the different personalities. So you understand it better, and you can appreciate it also more. That's that. I'm not seeing it as much as weaknesses anymore now. I just see it as different strengths.
Yeah, that is really interesting. So ESTPs, do you ever see emotion as weakness?
All the time.
I like emotions, the FE emotions. I still find it difficult to appreciate feelings, But to me, that's really an FE difference. It's no, I like emotions. I remember when for example, if an athlete wins after many years of working hard, wins a gold medal at the Olympics, I love to see the emotions, the tears. And I know the effort which went into it, and to me, that's really cool. Yeah, well, if somebody complains to me that he's not feeling really good, then I don't like those kinds of emotions or feelings. Let's say that one. Yeah.
Well, I do remember having a client who I remember just talking to her about her dog, and she asked me if I had a dog, and I forget what the exact conversation was, but at the end of it, she said something weird. It's like, "Oh, wow, you actually see love as kind of a weakness." And I was like, wow, that kind of threw me off. Like, that's the way she interpreted, like, the reason I don't have a dog and why I don't want a dog, because I don't want to be attached to this thing that like kind of pulls me away from my goals or whatever I want to do. So it was weird that she experienced it that way. But I think she might have been some type of FE dom too. So it was very interesting to kind of see that I was perceived that way. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. That is fascinating. How about you, Spencer? Your opinion on the question below?
Yeah, no, that's very interesting because I think as I've gotten older, I've started to see kind of FIE stuff that's very, very mature. So, for example, one of the therapists I saw, or a lot of them I see, are ISFPs and a few INFJs as well. And, again, having that, especially with ISFPs, having that Dom FI is something I really look up to. And it makes sense because I think, it's arguably a supervisor-supervisee relationship. So I personally get a lot out of that. And, and it's something where I do always enjoy the TI discussions with people and, and enjoying SCTI in general. But again, like when it comes to sort of the more sophisticated approach to life, that's something that I really strive for. And it's something I really want to do. So yeah, I mean, just FI in general and FE is something I really think is good.
But yeah, to say more about this question, if you look at SE DOMs, one of our strengths is that we don't give up easily. You just, if you hit an obstacle, you just try as many times as you can to cross that obstacle and move forward. And if you then look at somebody with an SE blind spot, like an INTP, they would typically say, if I do something like that, if you try the same thing multiple times and expect different results, you're stupid, So that's where you see the difference. It's well, to me, it's how I've learned to ride the bike as a small kid. The first time you fall and then you step on the bike again until you master it. And that's the SE approach to me. You just don't give up, and it's not exactly the same, but it might look the same, because every time you step on the bike, it is not the same, because our TI also analyzes what went well and what didn't go well, and we try something different. And to an observer, they might not see the thinking process behind it, that we try one time to climb over the stone and go through it, then around it, and then under it. It's in many ways, and that's not always clear to others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really hard for me to look at like what are the failures in my life. Like I don't really think about it that way. So it's like I have to think about it in a way that I was always moving, but if you're not very focused, if you're not kind of in touch with your NI goals, then you just realize you're just going somewhere or you get off track and you fail that way because you're just unfocused, you're out of touch with your goals and kind of what you're trying to accomplish or something like that. And that's where you fail. It's not out of kind of because you gave up necessarily. It's because there's a kind of an unfocused, kind of movement going on. So
yeah, I don't think in terms of failure. So some people, I noticed that they really use that word a lot. Well, to me, you either succeed or you learn, and there's not really failure.
yeah, exactly.
I'm also not afraid that it won't work the first time. Some people are really afraid that they're not successful immediately. But to me, almost everything is a learning process. The more complex it gets, the more difficult it is. The first time I stepped in a single, I flipped over and had to swim. It didn't stop me from learning how to row the single.
Yeah. And so SE DOMs, they're very comfortable with trial and error. So doing something and adjusting every time they do it. Yeah. A word to describe this is agile. So there's a concept in software development called agile principles or agile methodology. And to me, it sounds a lot like SE. And basically the principle of it is when you failure is inevitable. So it's almost like you have to fail quick, because nothing is really like, you can either interpret it as a learning experience or as a failure, and you can make the most out of it by like retrying and retrying. So there's a huge component of adaptation and flexibility. And so I just thought agile is a good way to describe SC.
Yeah, it's not really failure. Even with the car, if you go too fast in the curve, you feel that you lose grip. As long as you don't immediately crash it into a pole, it was not a failure, but you just learned where the limit was, and otherwise you would not know, and you could go maybe a lot faster through the curve without knowing it. So that's how I see it as an ESTP.
Yeah. That's a really big growth mindset you have too. And I think like everyone could learn a lesson from SE DOMs. Like if something doesn't go as planned, it's not a failure. You can just recalibrate and it'll be fine. That's amazing. It's a concept that they use in art too. Like every brushstroke, like even if it goes not according to plan, it's not a bad brushstroke. You can make the most of it. It can almost add to the creation and to just flow with it. Yes, and so the next question by Miss Ashley. Company team building exercises, for example, games, quizzes, scavenger hunts. Are ESTPs all for this, or do they feel they are a waste of time?
Yeah, I like to work in teams at the office, but for me, the team building is on the job. You know, you work together as a team, and as you work together, the team grows. And I've been building teams, race run teams for the World Masters, but also at the office. We have quite a big team with the back office. We have several traders, and I really like to get in new talent. And I'm also approached a lot by talent from outside and inside the company. And I welcome them, and then we work together. And that's how I like to grow a team, not with these kind of forced company team building exercises. So for me, it's not the preferred approach, not at all. But it can be fun to do something with the company just to learn more about your other people. But I'm quite extrovert, so I chat to people at the coffee machine. And if I see somebody I don't know, I just sometimes say hello and introduce myself because I'm interested. And, so yeah, for me, it's not that interesting.
Cool. And Spencer?
Yeah, so I think for me, I find it valuable if I think there's some kind of like end goal to it. That's more tangible than, oh, let's all kind of feel comfortable around each other. And I think I'm a little biased because, to kind of, backpack off his point, I'm good at just kind of talking to people and wanting to get to know them, without that kind of thing. So I don't necessarily need to be thrown into something that, that helps me personally do that. I just want to go talk to people. And I think that's the way that it should happen, kind of more organically. Because I think especially with the introverted people, they can be a little bit kind of nervous about doing that. And in fact, they're not going to be themselves, and they can just kind of add that level of anxiety. So I want to kind of quell that again, kind of more like organically, and just chat with them one-on-one rather than make it this, this big spectacle for us all to get along or whatever. So, but, if there's some kind of competition involved, I love doing that. I think it's really cool and it's fun. But yeah, sort of achieving the team camaraderie, I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Really interesting. Yeah. So Spencer brings up practical application, whereas like sensors tend to want like a practical application to what they're doing, because I don't know. So that that makes a lot of sense. And so Chris, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, since I was type play last and self-pres, like I actually am kind of a loner. Like the first few jobs I had, I got fired from just kind of out of just boredom, pretty much. Like I just wasn't a great worker. So I've worked for myself for the last 9 years or so. But as far as if I was in a leadership position, or if I was some type of manager, like things like this is a great way to find people's strengths and confidence and have them kind of lower their guard because you're playing a game. It's like this person is very very logical and they're very competitive, so I'm going to put this person like in this place, or this person's very imaginative, but they're going to need a little bit more room to work. or I think games are a great way to kind of test people, or see their logic, see their strengths without kind of directly. I think it's kind of a sneaky way an ESTP would figure out what somebody's made of. It's not a very TE thing. Like TE, I think like an ENTJ would reluctantly have things like this, but somebody told them like you should probably do this, it's necessary, and they don't really want it. They just want to kind of get around things like this. But I think things like this can be important to for team building and for an informal way of kind of people getting to know each other. So I think
It's funny you say that, Chris.
a different thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me
What's
think
that?
of one time we had a guy who applied for a trading role, and he was quite far away from where we had the office, and it was not so easy for him to come to the office for an interview because he just had a full-time job, which was really busy. And we decided to meet just in the city in between for drinks and dinner, and that's how I basically got to know him. Turned out to be a great ISTP, so we got along really well. And the guy worked with us for quite some time, and we had a lot of fun together. But that's not a typical interview, That's but for me, a great way to learn what kind of guy he was. I learned he was a rugby player. Really a team player, and also he liked to go wood chopping with his brother in the woods, and I like this kind of things as well. So we had a lot of links, and it was really great to work with him at the same desk.
Mm-hmm. That's really awesome. And so Chris mentioned the word boredom. It's a word I hear EPs say sometimes, like when they're put in a situation that requires a lot of repetition and routine. Or just people with SE or NE high up, they tend to use the word like, I was bored of that a lot.
Yeah, it's quite easy to explain because we need sensory stimulus. And if you just sit in a meeting room and there's not enough action, I create action myself, and it can be a really difficult discussion to others, but just because I'm bored. There's nothing happening, there's no action, there's no decisions. So then I start asking questions or starting a discussion, and that's not always appreciated, but it's just out of boredom. It's otherwise I cannot keep my eyes open.
Absolutely. And so what are your hobbies?
Well, for me right now, I'm kind of a workaholic, but I have a lot of hobbies I want to pursue in the future. My biggest goal is kind of more financial independence in the next couple of years. Yeah. So right now I get up at 5 a.m. every morning. I work out. I get, a lot of this stuff out of the way. Kind of, that's what's helping with a little bit with objective personality too, when they type these other people and SE DOMs. If there's any SE DOMs out there, like if you really want to get things done, like you really have to get up in the morning early and get the important things done before there's too many distractions, because we're so easily distracted that it just, if anyone starts calling you or even the sun is up, like everything's turned on now, and it's like I kind of forget what I'm doing or what the goal of my day is even sometimes. Like if I don't kind of start it with, I'm going to do this, 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 and then the rest of the day I can kind of let it come. So it's been a real struggle for a long time, but mostly it's fitness and work, health and wealth at the moment. Like I used to play a lot of beach volleyball. I like all these things, but I just work all the time now pretty much. And there's no movie theaters open where I'm at. There's nothing, there's no bars open yet. I think they're opening things up in LA like sooner than later, but my life's actually kind of boring right now. But work is exciting for me. Like my work, it keeps me occupied. I have a job where I'm touching people and talking to them, so it's kind of like, that's enough stimulus to me. I'm meeting new people all the time, so it took me a long time to find that type of work to where it wasn't boring to me. So, and it really feeds my TI to talk to people who do so many different things. There's so many interesting people in LA who do so many different things, executives and a lot of the the SpaceX engineers are here, and they have a lot of crazy hobbies and stuff too. So it's really fun to talk to people and work on them and do that type of problem solving.
That's fantastic. And Spencer, your hobbies?
So, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm in Texas, and we're having all sorts of issues. There's no Wi-Fi. I'm on cellular, so if you can't hear me, I apologize. I'm a big soccer fan. I love following soccer, European soccer. I love playing soccer. I think that's a lot of SE involved, depending on what position you play. But I think regardless, there's a lot of SE to play. Let's see. I love talking to people, hanging out. I'm big with my family. I like hiking. I like traveling. Just anything I can do to share fun camaraderie. I love trying new food. Like, I'll love just going on Yelp and seeing like best, I don't know, Thai food where I live, and just go get the new Thai, and it's just in a win. It's like I'm not even planning for it in the morning. I'm just like, Thai food sounds good. What can I go do? Yeah. So a lot of food too, I'd say.
Yeah. I appreciate your dedication to coming to these panels, even though there's all of those tech issues in Texas right now. It's amazing. And so right now, so my bad. So with ESTPs, I realized that there's a subtype of ESTPs who really likes to give people new experiences as a form of showing love. So like Spencer said, on the whim, like with my ESTP brother, he'll go like, yo, I found the best sushi restaurant, or like the best whatever restaurant, and he'll take us there because he wants to see us experience good things. And I feel like with some SE DOMs, I don't know, sometimes their hobby can be like showing people new experiences that they might like. Yeah. And they got like a lot of FE joy from it too, seeing other people enjoy the things that like they recommend. Yeah. Even like with fast cars, I'll have ESTPs going like, yo, check out my fast car. And then they'll take us on a drive in that car. And it, like my brother was telling me about like, oh, get in this car, and it's like a really fast car, and he told me to put my head against the back of the seat or else I'll break my neck because it's so fast. And he thought it was so great to show me like a super fast car ride. And so I thought that was a little bit like of a form of ESTP showing that they love you.
And so it resonates to me with typically it's kind of shared experience where we also enjoyed ourselves a lot. And for me, it's when I arrange the cruise for the World Masters rowing, and then I invite basically the best guys I know, and there's a kind of core team of 4 guys which are typically always going, and then I build all the crews around it, and there are different age brackets, so I can have some really young guys. One time we combined with guys which were 70 years younger than the average of my 4, and we could do an age bracket in between the 2, say, generations. And we beat the Germans from Berlin. With old Olympian rowers with medals. So that gave us a lot of joy, and I like the whole experience, and to see how happy the others are if that project is successful. And I've done that since say for the last 10 years, and with a lot of success. We won like 17 times. So that's for me is something. Usually I don't organize a lot, but this is something where I start months in advance, because you have to arrange the cruise, you have to do the entries and transport, hotel. There are also others who help me. For example, the arranging hotel is not really a lot of fun to me, but the last time an ENTJ arranged the hotel for us and everything was perfect. So that's how we typically do it.
Yeah, just to add to that, a funny thing that I've noticed about me is that I'm actually personally, when I'm by myself, a lot of times I'm a homebody. But if I'm dating somebody, I will insist that we go out all the time. So, and even if she's like, we don't have to spend more money, I just want to stay home, like she has to like keep telling me like I don't want to, and it's like, okay, we'll stay home. But it's part of it is like, if I go out somewhere by myself, it's harder for me to know if I like what I'm doing. Like if my FI, or it's something weird where it's like, if I see a bunch of other people enjoying something, like it helps me understand if I like it. It's such a bizarre thing. I'm so kind of like, I'm in the moment, but at the same time, maybe it's an FI polar thing. Like I don't really know if I like it. I have very few things that I know that I like for sure. And other than that, it's like SE is, it's kind of a hedonistic function to where it's like, okay, I know this feels good, but it's so shallow. It's not like, oh, this brings meaning to me or anything. It's just something that you just do. So it's a very interesting thought that I just kind of had. So
Definitely. And so Samuel asks, how do you see your TI work differently compared to other TPs?
Yeah, nice to see question from Samuel. We know him. Yeah, in this case, you have two ESTPs with high TI. So that's to me the difference with for example, high STPs is not that big. They go deeper typically. So where I jump into action a lot quicker, they analyze more before they take action. So that's how you can explain basically the functions. With ENTPs, I see we have a lot of common interests. I really like the TI discussions with the ENTPs in my life, but they're more creative with their ideas and it's more abstract. We are more practical, as Joyce said earlier. I always look at, can I use this idea for something? Otherwise, I'm not so interested. To merge two black holes in space, that doesn't really interest me.
yeah, with it's hard. I don't have enough of a frame of reference for INTPs. I've tried to watch their videos, or some of the type talks that you've had. I think I've gotten through most of one of them, so it's tough with that one. But with ISTPs, Taylor thought I was maybe an ISTP before we started talking. It's like he thought, objective personality is like, it was kind of off until he started talking to me. But there is, even though I'm kind of an introverted ESTP, there is something that I see that's very different, is that I will see something as a opportunity in a way where they think it's just way too risky. And it's like this is a slam dunk. It may or may not be, but I see it that way. Like this is an opportunity to do something big, or to have a lot of fun, and they're way more risk averse than I would think an ESTP is.
That's so true. I was discussing with my ISTP brother an opportunity I saw in the financial markets, and when we were still discussing, I already did a trade. He said, well,
yeah,
you really have a lot of guts. You wanted to analyze a few more days, but then the opportunity was already half gone. But yeah, I see an opportunity. I think, why wait? Just bang.
Yeah. SE is good at noticing opportunity and seizing the moment with risk
more
taking.
That we take action upon it. I think a lot of people see the opportunities, but then they start thinking about it or feeling about it, and then it's gone. And
yeah,
it's almost like if I drop a knife, I already catch it before thinking about maybe cutting my fingers. That's how quick SE is. That's how it goes. There's no delay. You act, and I think that's for me a good example of SE. And with opportunities, it's the same. I see an opportunity, and then I'm not going to think a long time about it. I act upon it, and then it can even be, if you talk about trading, it can be I do the trade and then think, this is probably not a good idea when I really overthinking it with TI, and then I exit the trade again at a small level profit, but the trade is first. Well, and ISTP would do the other sequence, would think a lot more about it before entering the trade, and then also they have stronger NI, which also helps to see, for example, the macro picture. With INTPs, I think their SE blind spot is a bit of an issue. So I go along really well with ENTPs, but with INTPs typically not, because They are disturbed by my forceful, as they see it, SE. They just find me too forceful, and it's like the volume is turned at 10, while they tolerate only 2. And I find them too indecisive. They just, with their NE, they keep the options open for ages. And one time I had a backup my boss, because my own boss was out of the job for a few months, and I only go to my boss when I have to. And that in a big company, that's typically when you need something exceeds your own authorization limits, and then I need to ask an approval to do a big deal or something. And that guy, the INTP, could not take decisions, and it drove me nuts, because to me, yeah, if I ask somebody something, I want a quick answer to move on. That's the DSD way, and I don't want to wait 2 weeks before somebody finally comes with a decision. Then I just do and ask for forgiveness, because I cannot live like that.
Yeah, with SE DOMs, like with ESTPs and ESFPs, there's a quick thought to action ratio. I don't know, like when they think, like there's a reflex really quick, while other people like don't always like act when they have a thought. Like SE DOMs tend to have a thought to action type of thing. And also the mention about risk, that is so true. So with ESTPs, they're bolder with taking risks. Like with, you were all mentioning stock trading. ESTPs tend to be a little bolder, like quicker with like clicking,
Yeah,
like yes.
high risk, high reward.
Mm-hmm. Risk it for the biscuit. And so what do you think are some ESTP stereotypes that are largely true?
I don't. Let's first say that I don't agree with the stereotype that we are thrill seekers. That's to me. I know too many ESTPs who are not thrill seekers to think that's a very good stereotype. We like action, but it doesn't mean we are just jumping out of airplanes and all the time and things like that, or yeah, really dangerous stuff. There can be things like driving fast on a motorbike. I have a Ducati myself, which others might find really risky, but because we're so controlled with our movements, it doesn't feel risky at all to me. And also as a kid, when I was 7, I was walking on the rooftop. And to others, that might look really scary, but to me, it was very controlled and not risky. And so it's also kind of, how do you define risk? When I see a guy on a mountain bike on a trail with a big cliff next to him, I think that's really risky. And that's not something I would quickly do, because my TI would just think, okay, if you make a mistake, you're dead. So I take a lot of calculated risk, and even in the markets where I can take quite big risks, I would not take the tail end risk of where the trade could just wipe me out. Like I always keep in mind what, even if it's a Six Sigma event, I keep in my mind that it might happen, and what will if it will blow me away, and it will be the end of my trading life, then I will not do it. And that's how I think about it. So I think that our TI prevents us from taking excessive risk, but you also have ESTPs with low TI, and yeah, they can do really crazy stuff. I've seen that on motorbikes and things like that as well, just because they don't think too much. And then it is, you see it more with ESFPs. I know quite many ESFPs who crashed cars and motorbikes just because they were not thinking at all. So to me, there's quite a big difference. The TI prevents us, is a kind of risk calculator all the time. It looks at the pros and cons, and it assesses the risks. And to an ESTP, we have high risk tolerance, so it might be risky, but it's not that it kills us very quickly. Let's say that way.
Yeah. See, sometimes the TI gets in the way of FI though, because you can calculate risks and understand like the things associated with risks. Sometimes it can be hard to form like a FI attachment, because you're kind of like staying objective with the thing instead of instead of putting like your full heart into it, you're thinking about the reasons why you should be into something. Yeah. And so yeah, you can go.
Well, I was just gonna say I got hurt a lot as a kid. Before I was a lot of stitches, a lot of so there was a lot of kind of risk taking, but as a kid you don't have that much context, I guess. So it was just ridiculous how much I got hurt until I got older. So, and I think as I've gotten older, like I don't really feel the need to jump out of a plane or do these things, like, but I mean, I'm kind of just in a very particular place in my life. I think I'm probably going to do a lot of crazy things if if I get to a place. I think this is kind of the 8 in me, or the self-preservation thing in me, where like I have to feel kind of financially stable for the future. So like, and then it's just all open. But I watched your ESTP talk, and I think Baaf was there too, where like, do you relate to like the sex craze stereotype? And I think compared to a lot of people, like I'm kind of in that category. I'm still single, and maybe some of that, the kind of the lust, the 8 thing too. I mean, 7s probably have this problem too. So it's kind of and you're kind of unsure. But it was interesting because a lot of the ESTPs on that panel were married and all these things. So it's like, to me, I kind of probably would fit that stereotype for some people, to where like I'm not thinking about it too much in the moment when I'm in a relationships with these people, and then I'll have to think later, was like, was I in love with her? Like, why did that relationship end? And it's just like, it is a type of boredom. It is like the intensity of it kind of falls, and it's like I'm just looking for something else now, and just like one thing leads to another, then all of a sudden it just kind of slowly goes away, and you have to really think about that. And because if you're kind of an intensity, but it's not like, it doesn't always have to be physical, like the jumping out of a plane thing, the doer thing, like there's a lot of ways to bring intensity to your life. Like,
can be a computer game, shooting game. That's, I know plenty of ESTPs who can enjoy just a good shooting game. So.
Yeah.
A stereotype to me is that a lot of ESTPs, they like physical workouts. Today, an ENTP friend visited me because all the gyms are closed, and I have quite a lot of gym equipment in the garage. So we did the workout today together. First half an hour on the rowing machine, and then we lifted weights, deadlifts, and those kind of things. I do 1 hour to 1.5 hour of exercise every day, and I used to be in the national team. And I think the stereotype ESTP is a quarterback or something like that, and that stereotype I think works well because even the ESTPs are not that much into really active team sports. They are in M&A fighting or things like that. So they always have some physical, let's say, release valve to get rid of their energy, because typically they have quite some energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Video games can definitely fill that hole for a lot of young kids these days. There's probably a lot of ESTPs that are wasting a lot of time on shooters and stuff. I did some of that when I was younger too. So just that addiction to that kind of rush of action, I guess, even if it's kind of in the virtual world, it's kind of and
yeah,
I don't know, every gamer is going to look a little different, but yeah.
It would also be that we can play the game, we can do an all-nighter, no problem. I did this as a kid as well. Just at one moment your brother wakes up and you think, oh wow, is it already that late? And then you're still playing the same game, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All the EPs that I've interviewed, they will mention like pent up energy, and so Baaf, you bring it up as well. Like you need a release valve for that pent up energy.
Yeah, my coworkers even know that it's better not to have me in a meeting if I cannot go to the gym during lunchtime, because I can be just a dick in a meeting in the afternoon if I have all this energy, and it's like you're almost frustrated because the energy can get out, and then you're in a boring meeting. But then, yeah, I'm a bit of a spoiler sometimes. You know? They know it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so how did you know you were an ESTP and not an ENTP? So to preface this, when ESTPs tend to mistype, they tend to think that they're ENTPs, or if they're introverted, they might think they're an introvert. Like a lot of ESTPs will say that they're an introvert. I know Chris here and my brother identify as like kind of a little bit introverted, but they're really extroverts. So
Yeah.
those are the two common ESTP mistypes.
Yeah. So when you, because I always thought I was sort of introverted until you actually make the comparisons, and then it's like, no, I'm not an introvert. So to real introverts, it's not even close. So, but I type as an ENTP too on 16 personalities, and I think as an ESTP growing up, you do kind of feel like an outsider. So you kind of so it's like, oh, maybe I'm an intuitive because that's kind of what it looks like online at first glance. But you just start to realize how much more concrete you are. ENTPs are very much more kind of artistic, and they're much more creative in an abstract realm where, like, if you look at their room or like what kind of programs are running on their computer, or kind of the way they dress, even, it's so much more like colorful and kind of it's just they're more flamboyant, I think, and I don't know if that's the right word precisely, but like they probably smile more too. I don't know. I'm just coming up with stuff at the top of my head, like some of the ESTPs I've seen, and they're super witty. Like we can be witty in ways too, but just their way with language is just like, wow, it's entertaining.
Yeah, I had a housemate, then ENTP, and then I know quite many of them, and also at work I worked with ENTPs over the most years over the last 20 years. I also had an ENTP boss, which was great because I got a lot of freedom. But I would say I don't think, to me, the ENTPs are not that flamboyant, Chris. I think.
Oh, really? Maybe I'm going off
so
stereotypes because I haven't met as many.
It's like that they don't value looking good, so it can look a bit sloppy. And typically, when others give them advice, they will do something with it. While ESTPs can also appreciate a really tailor-made suit or something like that, or shiny colors. It's I think the SE factor, but you're more TI, so maybe for you it's more you're more like the TI dark colors, and so I would say ENTPs are more in their head. ESTPs are more practical. And a good example is I was tinkering around with mopeds, motorbikes, cars all the time.
Yeah.
My ENTP son is not interested at all. Even if I'm fixing a car, he would not watch what I'm doing. Well, ESTPs and ISTPs, they love that stuff, you know, and it can be fixing a chainsaw and then cutting a tree. That's STP stuff. Well, ENTPs, they're more in their head with abstract ideas and can really entertain themselves with just theories. And well, we need to do something in the real world. So that's for me the easiest comparison, the differential.
Yeah, I would agree. Taco. I would say with ENTPs, there's ENTPs, they ideate and they brainstorm a lot, and there's a long thought to action. So they'll have a lot of ideas and very few that they'll act on. There's a long gap between reflex and thought. Whereas for ESTPs, there's almost like an instinctual thought to action or thought to reflex that ESTPs had. Also, you can tell by a person's eyes too whether or not like they're an ESTP, because I noticed with ESTPs they have a presence with their eyes. Okay, what I mean by this is like there's an in the momentness to an ESTP's eyes. Like you feel like they're with you, like in the real world. Like you feel like very they're they're hyper vigilant of what's going around them. I don't know. It's like they're tuned in.
No, I understand what
They-
you're saying. I've heard many times that people said that they felt I was really listening to them. I was really present.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Or at least we're really
And
good at looking at it, looking like we do.
yeah. Yeah. And so what are your interactions with INPs? So INFPs and INTPs, since your dominant function is they're polar in socionics.
INFPs used to run away from me. I learned to tone down my SE and not to scare them immediately away. But the TI comments I make typically offend them. While to me there are no feelings attached to it. It's just an observation, an analytical comment, and to them it's offending or just they think I'm rude, and the SE is just too much intensity. I think so. It's not that there were zero INFPs in the first 45 years of my life. I just cannot name anyone, and because of typology, now I recognize them very quickly. And for example, a reporter from an agency would used to call me every week to ask about the markets. She was a clear INFP to me, and at the telephone, the SE is always muted. It's similar as at Facebook. They take less offense with me as an ESTP. But even when we met, I didn't scare her away because I just knew she was an INFP and had to adjust, basically. And it's funny because with their FI, they want people to be authentic. But if I'm my authentic self, I scare them away. So I have to adjust. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And no, but I find it absolutely fascinating how creative they can be with words. With it's just a kind of creative side, which is to me impressive, and it is for good reason that lady I just mentioned became a reporter. She also was into languages. And she went to China for 3 years to learn Chinese and these kind of things. It's funny, and I really like it. And with INTPs, typically we don't gel well. At least it's in my case. Well, most of my best friends are ISTPs, so it's not the TI. It's really the I think the SISE and NESE and differences.
Yeah, I'd like
Absolutely.
to. Oh, did you have something to say, Joyce?
Oh, nope. I was just going to say, how about you, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, Joyce knows. Well, I don't know if I can't 100% sure that I've met any INTPs long enough to really interact with them. Like, they're still not a type I'm too familiar with. Just through objective personality, I've watched their class. They've typed some INTPs, some famous ones. But like, even with the ENTP example, like when Taco talked about, because he knows so many more. Like for me, I felt like after I talked, I felt like I was going off more stereotypes and more kind of, things I had in my head for some reason. But with an INFP, like my younger brother is an INFP. It took me a long time to get him interested enough to take the test and look at a little bit of the functions, and it became so obvious, like why he is the way he is, and it's. And we talked, Joyce, about both of my parents are thinkers too. And being like older brother, like he might have probably saw me as a bully too when we were younger. And I just have so much more compassion for him now. And just talking to him about like FI things, about music, like he makes me feel like so like uncultured because he has so many thoughts about music. Like when I was like, oh, this is my favorite song, or this song was stuck in my head since I was a kid. I was like, I think this is what this song is about. And he just like has all these theories and all these kind of ways he breaks it down where it's like, I don't even know what you're saying, but I know it's deep. And it's kind of like, so I think his type is in outer space for me. Like it's so hard for me to understand him. So, and he's so in his own world, like he doesn't really, he has, when he works, it's like lightning strikes, and he's so focused, and he's so focused, like anyone I've ever seen. But most of the time, he's just the most lazy person I've ever met in my life. So it's kind of like,
Yeah, the few INFPs I've met, they typically like to spend the Sunday hours in bed and reading stuff or just watching something at YouTube. Well, for me, I wake up early and it's action time, and I go on like a Duracell rabbit the whole day, you know. So it's the opposite. Yeah.
but it's just like what I'm trying to mentor him with, all this like macho stuff, you know, like how to be a man or whatever, it's just going right over his head. Like he's not interested. So it's kind of like,
they don't value it, so you don't have to mentor them. They don't value it.
you're like, I'm not interested. I don't really, you know, it's and yeah, like I thought there was something wrong with him, like because even like the ESTP stereotype is a lot of, you know, a lot of people think a man should be, or the ISTP.
Yeah, and if you combine it with an 8 Enneagram, then it's even double.
So it's kind of like he's like a defective man, you know, and it's like I didn't want, like I have so much more compassion for him now, you know. And then knowing that a lot of the greatest writers in history, I think, were INFPs. Like especially, I think like Tolkien and I think George R.R. Martin is. It's like for them to create these worlds, there has to be so much like inner depth and love for these characters, and so much thought that goes in. Like it's an obsession, you know. And I couldn't really create art in that way. So
I think it was 3 years ago I saw an INFP guy with I think we were with like 6 STPs, and I felt so sorry for him because they were just I can see why they think we are bullies, but I think the STPs found him just weak and they were making comments about it, and I wanted to protect the guy because if you understand typology and you see what's happening, you have a guy who never valued any strength in his life, and then you have all these guys who would never even admit they have pain or whatever. It's like two opposite worlds, and they don't understand each other. And the guys just found them a weakling, and the INFP, he was not in the right world at that time, so he was just lost.
Yeah. And so with ESTPs, they're quick to act, and with INFPs, they're slow to act, because INFPs like kind of need to think about, does this action resonate with me? Like, is this like they'll take a long time mulling over their decisions, and sometimes they won't even make decisions because they need to make sure it's the perfect one, or like, and so like Chris said, when he said the phrase, "Is there something wrong with you?" We tend to think that phrase when someone is bad at our dominant function. So even with me, when people are bad at NI, I'll be like, is something wrong with you? And that's how you know that it's something that you're good at, that you're kind of projecting onto other people, that you expect them to be good at too. Because it's almost like, well, if you don't have this, are you a defective human being? But the case is that it's actually your strength, but you don't acknowledge it as your strength. You see it as a given. And so you kind of like judge people against that bar.
And I think
Joyce is normal, like water is to a fish.
And I think the INFPs are actually, I mean, I don't really know, but it's hard to probably get this data, but I think they're the ones that have the most like autistic traits and stuff like that too. I mean, obviously kind of highly intelligent intuitives are going to seem very strange to most of the population and not really fit in, but it's a lot of these maladies and a lot of these, you know, boxes they try to put people in, all these diagnoses. It's I have a hard time with a lot of that stuff, and typology is helping.
ADHD, you know, that's typical for NE or SE doms, and to me, it's nothing wrong. You just the ESTPs need relief for their energy, and don't tell them that they're suffering from ADHD and give them pills to calm them down. Just allow them to play. You know?
Yeah. I noticed the theme. So with ESTPs, they tend to say something along the lines of what Chris said about how, oh, you know, I don't know if I fully believe in things that hold you back. So ESTPs are big in terms of accountability. So they don't like excuses. So if they perceive something as an excuse, they might see it as like a weakness. You know, if they're a type 8, especially in the Enneagram, I notice that I hear a lot of that language, like be accountable for yourself type of language with ESTPs, and their beliefs will be in line with that. Yeah. And so INFJs and INTJs, inferior SE, really look up to ESTPs and their hero SE function. What tips can you give INFJs and INTJs to help them develop their SE?
I love this question, Ma. It's I've an INTJ crewmate, and he was in a national team. So, and as a student race rower, I had my best bowman in the pair was an INFJ. So, I think the inferior SEs, they're not inferior. It's they underestimate how strong their SE can be if they work on it, and it will exhaust them if they do it too long. So the INFJ crewmate, he would take a nap after a morning workout. Well, I would go on with a lot of other projects and activities the whole day, and then do the afternoon workout again with him. But if they activate their SE, it can be super strong, and a rowing race is like typically a 2,000 meter race. It lasts like 7 or 6 minutes, depending what kind of boat type it is. And they can be absolutely fantastic. So don't put yourself down too much. As an ESTP, I really look up to the NI of INFJs and INTJs. To me, I can learn a lot from them. So I see each other as mutual coaches. And at work, if I want to discuss strategies, I always go to an INTJ friend. He looks like 10 years ahead and always has a good plan or ideas. It's just incredible. And if I discuss people matters in the team, I always go to an NFJ. We have an INFJ and an ENFJ in the team, and they're my best advisors on people things. They spot everything which is going on in the team, and as a manager, I think that's really valuable. So my tip would be just try to do activities with an SE DOM with an ESTP, or if you want to develop your SE, and if you want to develop your TI, and also go with STPs. You know, I'd like the NFJs to develop my weaker functions, and it worked out really well for me. And then you have to tolerate that we jump into action maybe a bit quicker than you would prefer, and that's, to me, it's the opposite. And I sometimes think, you overthink too much, and just do it. You know, the Nike slogan. I think that's a really SE slogan. So
yeah, I agree, Taco. And I guess the piece of advice I would give is like look at your body, take care of your body. I'll give you an example from my real life. So I don't typically give examples, but I realize that it's helpful for the audience. So I thought and plus I never share about myself. And so I thought I want to, because I want my audience members to not see me as a perpetual mystery. And so with my ESTP brother, when I was little, like, I don't know, he's like, Joyce, you need to stretch. You need to like really stretch. And I realized like, he told me that I have the flexibility of a rock. And I thought it was hilarious because like I think SC
and the fun thing
people...
is that NFJs can tolerate those kind of remarks. They see it from the positive side, and as we intend to express it. Well, an NFP would find it offending and find us rude. So this is a good example, because I always notice if I say something which is seen by one as blunt at an INFJ or an ENFJ, thinks, oh, well, he's right. It's a good good tip. So sorry for interrupting, but that was something I really liked what you said.
Yeah, because as intuitives, we think we can kind of like neglect our bodies, but I realized that like ESTPs are so tuned into the world that they're so tuned into how your body works, and they're like, hey, your body looks like it's like you might need a stretch here, because they notice like every little micro thing about you.
Yeah.
And so I noticed that if you ask like an ESTP to help you with that, like they will. But my brother kind of like, he put me through military type of workouts, and he's kind of like, okay, you really need to like get in shape, because I would neglect the SE sometimes. And it was really helpful to, get this SE workout coach. So that was pretty funny. And Chris, do you have anything to add to this question?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are going through my mind because I have a lot of clients who are probably intuitives. Where I live, there's a lot of aerospace companies, a lot of people who come see me who work on warrior types. But then I just thought of, like, I brought my INFP brother to the gym, and it's a disaster. Like, I can't, like, I try to get him to do anything I'm doing. He's like, oh, this hurts. Oh, I'm tired. Oh, I can't do this. So it's like, with all the clients I have now, a lot of people I work on are just hurt because they're so unaware of their bodies. They don't exercise. They're so unaware of their posture. So it's like anything, if you can think of anything to get you to move that you would enjoy, whether it's yoga or walking or just pretty much anything that gets you into your body.
Yeah, I think that's the good difference between the beta quadra and the NFPs, because if I invite an INFJ or an INTJ to the gym or to have a combined session at the rowing machine, they pick it up. They do really well, and so it's the SE is there. It's just that they tend to activate it much less. So my main tip would be, don't be afraid to take action, and just allow yourself to just try out things by doing something without having a fully prepared plan. That would be my tip to INFJs and INTJs. Just try out. Sometimes force yourself just to do it and see what happens. Usually it's not the end of the world.
Well, I realize as an ESTP or SC Dom or whatever, it's like we're so much more self-motivated when it comes to exercise and because it's so fun for us and just like becoming stronger, or like that's just kind of how that's like a top priority for us. So it's like people will ask me like what I do and everything, but I realize if they're not kind of the same type of person as me, like a lot of people here, they're getting fat, they're getting super out of shape and unhealthy because they can't go to their group classes, because they can't get up in the morning at 5 a.m. and lift weights. Like a lot of people cannot feel motivated to do that. So it's just whether you can watch a YouTube video of and follow along with anybody, like just start small and just try to get into your body. And like for me, when when people come in and I give them a massage too, like some people are so unaware of their bodies, it's crazy, like how much they don't know. It's like, wow, this hurts. And it's like, wow, did you know you can like barely lift your shoulder? Like that's not, like, don't you understand your range of motion is like terrible and your posture is awful? And a lot of people just don't know. And I'm guessing those are probably a lot of intuitives. I mean, these are like people who are working on rockets or lasers and like a lot of the aerospace industry in this area. So it's kind of like, and it's given me it helps me project less too onto other people, like my own strengths and weaknesses. But it's to prescribe.
We like freedom ourselves, and we allow others their freedom as well. So I like the way you phrased it, Chris.
Yeah, if I have a hard time with my practice because I don't really like prescribing very specific things to people.
Exactly.
So, but a lot of people want you to do that, and it's like you need to find an ESTJ doctor to tell you what to do.
He will give you a list. 3 simple things to get stronger.
Yeah, and they're not going to care about your input or anything, and you're probably not going to do it. So.
I like the next question. What are your preferred love languages? And for me, physical touch is very high at the list. Gifts is at the bottom. So I think gifts is probably has to do something with FI, because I don't care a lot about gifts. Well, I love it if somebody takes me out for dinner, or if we do something fun together, that would be quality time. So that's high. That's probably number 2. Physical touch number 1. Quality time number 2, and then probably acts of service, I would say. So,
Yeah,
if somebody
actually,
cooks a nice meal for me, that's an act of service. Yeah.
yeah, that's a big one for me, actually. That's kind of, but I don't know. I've thought about this a lot because physical touch, like at some point, like I kind of need it, but it's almost kind of cheap to me now. It's kind of weird. I don't really know if that's actually a love language of mine. Like it's just like an SE compulsion.
I
So
think it's SE wants to the sensory stimulus. I think, and for me,
yeah,
touching somebody's body, that's really important. And also, yeah, that somebody dares to hold you, that's also important. The thing is, what I noticed, and as we grow older, our NI starts to develop, and we find just the physical touch itself a bit shallow. So there needs to be kind of spiritual component when you get older and the NI develops. So I think Joyce as an INFJ would understand that immediately when I say that. But
yeah,
so only the physical touch would be too shallow. There needs to be a psychological component. So it's not only that they have to touch basically your body, but also have to touch your soul if you grow your NI. That's the way I would say it.
yeah. I've only had maybe very few instances where I've maybe felt that way. So it's kind of like it's I don't know. I've set up my lifestyle to be very independent and kind of do what I want, and it's probably affected some of my intimacies with people. So, but yeah, I definitely see that in other people where physical touch is something different to them, and so it's kind of but for me, acts of service and quality time is probably
The dinner with good wine, that's
yeah.
and a good
And
discussion,
then
of course.
it's just like the physical touch is just like going to be a given. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
like it's if that's not there, it's not going to work. Obviously, like that has to be kind of abundant, and you have to be okay with me touching you a lot and stuff. So it's kind of like I don't know. So I'm guessing an intuitive like might be a hard time them getting used to kind of the whole SE just encroaching on you. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're missing one of the 5 love languages. Which one are we missing?
Words of affirmation.
Yeah, words of affirmation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that one's got to be high up for me too, even though I want to believe I don't need it. I think it is about intimacy though. It's not about that I need it to move forward or attain my goals, but it is a love language. So I think this is how I think this person thinks highly of me, right? So
Yeah, for me, there's also an element which is not in the love languages, but it's a kind of trust and loyalty element. So, for example,
yeah,
if I would be a younger version of myself, and a girl would have her car and would give me her keys to drive the car when we go somewhere, that means a lot to me. That's a kind of trust in your driving skills, and you'll be, driving her car. If she would insist to drive her own car, that would be a big turn off to me. Yeah.
yeah. I think there's so few times where you're going to see us emotional or see our naked FI. So we want you to recognize that we are competent and we will get things done, because that's mostly what you're going to get from us. It's the emotional availability with ESTPs is going to be shallow or rare, and like when you get that moment, it's probably going to be great because it doesn't happen very often. But it's maybe for you that's a little different as you get older. Like you have more access to it, but it's
Still, the thing is that I think it's so natural to suppress your feelings when you're an ESTP 8-7, because everything which makes you feel makes you basically weak. So if you have been pushing it away your whole life, it's not easy to express it even when you get older.
Yeah. And so meta trend wise is I see like the love languages, like anyone can have any love language. There tends to be a slight trend towards SE and physical touch. And there's also a trend between physical touch and men in general. Because I notice a lot of guys, like when I ask them this question, they tend to sometimes answer with physical touch higher up. And I think it might be cultural, it might be socialized, it might be other things as well. And so we talked a bit about, man, I forgot what I was going to say.
Go off the last question, sort of, I don't know. Just, yeah, go ahead.
For sure. And so what do you think, what do you think about the belief that ETPs don't have feelings because of FE third?
Yeah, it's strange because we are so extroverted. You can easily see what we think. If you don't like somebody, you can easily. If I don't like somebody, you can easily read it from my face. If I'm irritated, you can easily read it from my face. So those to me are also feelings. And if we have a team at the office which is working really well together, it makes me feel really good. So if the boat is flowing well, it also makes me feel good. So it's maybe we have not these like 1,000 shades of gray, you know. For us, we feel good or we don't feel good. And it's not that much introverted feeling, but extrovert feelings is if others are happy, yeah, then typically we are quickly happy as well. So it's like you take over the feelings of others sometimes when they resonate with you. The thing is, I cannot. Typically, I say resonate. That's really important. So that's why I take a bit longer to dive deeper into it, because if you look at a lot of FI users, they can motivate themselves with a motivating video or motivating music. They can cheer themselves up with happy music. Well, I don't have that at all. I always look for music which resonates my state. So if I feel really happy, I can listen to happy music, but I cannot listen to happy music when I don't feel happy. And so I always try to find the right music for the state I'm in.
Yeah. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand the question because it would be interesting to ask an ISTP what it feels like to have FE in the fourth slot, and but I mean, I pretty much, as bad as this to say to most people, I think for me personally, FE is just kind of a tool function. It's a way to make people feel a certain way, but it's not FI. So it's kind of I don't know, FE, there is something about it that's not genuine, like in the way FI is. So it would be I don't know how, if you've talked to an ESFJ, like what is she actually, like what is her, I guess that's why ESFJs kind of have the stereotype of being kind of shallow and stuff too. You're just kind of compulsively doing this thing, but it's not, you're being nice for yourself. Like you're not really, I mean, like, but FE is just kind of like a tool. I don't really know what.
Yeah, to me, Chris, is not genuine from the FI sense because they projected it themselves. But FE to me is genuine that they want to make the group happy. So if you look at the ESFJ, they can arrange drinks or dinner for family or community, and that's where they get the happiness, that they see the whole community is enjoying the dinner. And to me, that's a genuine feeling.
Yeah, you're right.
But it's different satisfaction. It's not for themselves, but it's for the whole group. And if the group is happy, they themselves are also happy. I like the next question. It's a bit easier to answer because the next question links back to what Chris said about FE as a tool, and I think ESTPs really use FE as a tool. And I like to roll with teams with 8s and 4s, while the ISTPs who have FE in the 4th slot, they typically prefer the single. And if they're not in the single, it's a double or the pair. I use the FE basically to be more effective with the team. So it supports the SCTI. While with an FE DOM, it would be the main driver, and the other functions would support the FE. So that's the main difference to me.
I agree. A lot of ESTPs, when they describe their FE, they kind of say, like for some of them, they say that they kind of use the FE as a tool to kind of like with their TI. So there's some sort of TI calculation with their FE.
Yeah. But the TI is prioritized. For example, if at one moment a guy in the crew would get out of shape, my TI still wants the boat to be the fastest boat possible. So my TI would say we have to deselect the guy, or he needs to up his game and train more to get back in shape. And that's really the TI side. But it's from an FE perspective, that would be cold. And my FE would think, okay, he's been in the team for 10 years, so it's a bit cruel to kick him out. But I would give him basically a kind of chance by saying, hey, you need to improve because you're now not at the level of the team. So while an FE DOM would really struggle with it and would say, oh no, it's more important that we are happy together than to perform. That's what I noticed as an ISFJ rower.
Yeah, I just had a thought too with FE. When an ESTP gets into a conflict, we're trying to TI or SE or FE smooth something over or get someone to understand something. And then I think the reason we kind of explode is that we resent the fact that we have to hurt your feelings. Like I'm upset, now I'm even more upset because I have to like hurt your feelings. It's like, it's kind of like I just want to get this over really fast now, so I'm just going to explode. Like I don't want to hurt your feelings and I want to get this over with. So it's kind of like, it's hurtful to me to hurt you, but this needs to happen. So it's kind of like, that is something I kind of thought of too. And I resent the fact that you're making me hurt your feelings. Like it's a weird thing in our heads that I think we kind of do. I don't know.
That fully resonates, Chris, because sometimes it's like people see us as basically a bit cold because we take these harsh decisions, TI decisions, but we feel more guilty about it than people are aware. It can really bother us, and somebody might be hurt because they are kicked out of the team or something because we told them that they're not performing well and they need to improve, something like that. And we do it for the team or for the person themselves to become better or stronger or whatever. But
and I might go apologize to them personally, but not to the team.
Interesting. Yeah. Another way FE manifests in the 3rd slot is with some ESTPs. I noticed like they like to get a reaction out of people to mix things up, to make things interesting. So for instance, this is not all ESTPs, but this is some ESTPs. So I have this ESTP friend who he'll be driving a car and he'll like purposely like swish the car a little bit to see how we'll react. Or like they'll say something shocking to see like how you will react to it. Because there's some sort of FE type of fulfillment out of seeing you react. Yeah.
I had this, one moment I almost lost my job because vice president sometimes visit Europe. He always had this kind of, I call it a Botox face, you know. There was zero expression, an ESTJ, zero expression, and that drove me nuts because I want to see who's in front of me. And if you don't get any expression back, it's like you're talking to a black hole. So at one moment, I just provoked him and I got him out of his poker face. And I got some emotion out of it. That felt really good, but he was extremely pissed. So is that what you meant, Joyce? Because that's the first thing that came into my mind.
Yeah, Yeah, totally. And so Christian asks, how do you tell apart an ESTP from an ESFP? So my question for you is, how did you know that you weren't an ESFP?
The ESFPs, they're more like the strict school teachers. And the ESTPs, they're more like live and let live. We allow other people their freedom. It's not that they have to behave in a specific way. Well, I like the FE of ESFPs, but I don't like the way they always tell me how I should behave. And I don't have that issue with other FE users like INFJs and ENFJs, but it's really with ESFPs. Now I'm sorry, I didn't read the question well.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
You have to cut it out or need to.
True.
Yeah, ESFPs,
so
they don't have the TI and they have FI, so come on, we have FI blind spots so that you spot it immediately. They have TI blind spots, it's also you spot. To me, I would never confuse these two types. It's you immediately spot the SE, so that's quick. But if you know them a bit better, it's so clear the difference. Sorry, I get it wrong. I thought ESFJ. That was my first
time. Yeah, I think where the confusion can happen is male FPs. Male FPs can look like TPs because men in general look kind of like thinkery. This is a common mistype I see when people are typing people. Even sometimes I'll assume that someone is a TP when they're a male off the bat, when they're really an FP. So that's something to keep in mind. Men can generally look more like unemotional in general. Now, how I tell apart the ESTP from the ESFP is because the ESFP has TI blind spot, is ESFPs are way less calculative. I feel like within every ESTP, there's an inner, like, cold calculativeness with every action. I know but with ESFPs, I don't think they actually have that. Yeah,
that's what I said about crashing the car or the motorbike. No, you really see the difference. And I also find them a bit cocky with their TE. They have typically this kind of to-do list, and then they don't hold themselves to it. But they are so happy with this list or with this new Excel spreadsheet they made with the new process. While ESTPs don't like this, don't like processes. But in the end, the ESFP doesn't have the discipline to follow the process they invented themselves. That's always funny. But you see the TE coming out quite strong sometimes. I think a lot of people in the police force are also ESFPs. They like these rules, and then with their SE they enforce it. And I've met quite many of these people who also at the safety guards at their office, and quite many of them are SFPs.
Yeah.
And they tell you
so
about
true.
the rules, and if you don't hold the rule, the SE comes out really, really strong. They make sure you stick to the rule. ESTP, come on, go away with your rules. I have my own rules.
Yeah, that is true. Here are some other differences I see between ESTPs and ESFPs. With ESTPs, there will be a tempered emotionality. So because they have TI, you can feel like a certain type of calculativeness out of ESTPs. And also, so my mom is an ESFP and my brother is an ESTP. And this is how they interact. Like, they both think that everyone is so slow. My mom will say things like, how come, like, besides me and your brother, everyone else is, like, so slow? Like, she'll wonder that. And, like, with my mother, a difference between her and my brother is, so I call FI sometimes like emotional time traveling or emotional time capsuling. So for instance, my mom will see a bicycle and she will go like, she'll tell me, "Hey Joyce, did you know that like a kid died, and you can tell because there are flowers on the bicycle and in there." My mom will have moments of deep empathy. She normally doesn't say it, but she has it very, very often, and it's very, very like piercing to her heart. Like for instance, we have cats. My mom is so empathetic towards the cats that she almost sees them as like people. And I know that like it's almost like this ability to know how it's like to be a cat, and it's almost like FI when it's visualizing your emotional experience, it goes all the way, and my mom will have this connective experience with people or animals she's just met because she understands them on a human level in a certain way. I don't know how to explain it, but I know this is something my brother, who's an ESTP, doesn't have off the bat. So that's a difference.
Yeah, also in many crews I wrote, there were sometimes ESFPs, and I would say they are kinder. You know, they bring flowers for the coxswain at the birthday, and the ESTPs don't. They send a card to somebody, you know, if they're ill. ESTPs, they typically don't. You know, so it's the FI factor. It's
Yeah, I would try to poke the second function and see what happens. Like just logical consistency, and then FI. I think they're much more triggerable too. Like if you start talking politics or start talking controversial statements, like the ESTP will kind of try to logically, or just kind of, we're just not really. I mean, at my office, like I'm in an area that's pretty mixed politically, and it's amazing how many people will come out like with, you know, very strong political statements to me when they just met me, like thinking that I'm on their side, or I agree with what they said, and it's very easy for me to just disconnect and not. And
yeah, the ESFPs can be really upset with the politician.
Yeah,
I don't care. It's I agree with him or not, but there's no emotional component. You know, I'm not upset the whole day because Trump said something. Come on. That's also where you really see a difference. Where we are the same is if we are in. That's what Joyce said about the world is so slow. If you have an ESFP or an ESTP in the car and you're driving and the light becomes green, they already say go, and before you saw it turned green. It's like we are impatient, and that's very funny. You know, you have an ISFJ in the wheel, and then you have two SE DOMs in the car, and then go, it's green. They don't have another color green. Come on. The car is still not moving, and they've said like 3 sentences. Yeah.
That is
I find
too
the ESFP is also a bit more impulsive, you know, where typically most SE DOMs are generalized as stereotyped as being impulsive. I find if I observe what ESFPs do, I find it typically impulsive, and that's also the TI factor, I think.
Oh, is it because like you can't trace back the rationale, like the TI rationale for doing something?
Yeah, they jump into action without thinking, basically. That's how I see it as an ESTP. And then you might see me as jumping into action without thinking because I miss the NI and I might not see the consequences of what I do, but I see the pros and cons from the TI perspective. So
True.
It's the immediate risk assessment while I do something, and that's sometimes completely absent with ESFPs, and also with ESTPs with low TI. So there we can be similar. If you're an ESTP who is not good with his TI and a really young one, they can look like an ESFP at first sight.
Yeah. Another difference too is my ESFP mom will always see my ESTP brother as emotionally fickle. So my brother sometimes, like, what his FE can kind of change up towards things, whereas I think FI, when it cares very steadily. And so my mom will always like look at my brother and be like, "You're so emotionally fickle. Like your emotions, they can easily change if the situation changes."
We're like water, you know. We go with the flow. So you're not attached to a specific emotion. That's how I see it.
Yeah, my INFP brother tells me that too, and he thinks but he also said something interesting where he thinks I'm kind of predictable in a way, and I was like, I think of myself as unpredictable, but I haven't fleshed that out from him, so it'd be kind of interesting to see what he would actually say. But that's a different topic. But yeah.
What function do you value the most? Interesting name, Crisis Alert. I like that name. Yeah, we love Crisis, so it's a good name for this. I do value or I aspire NIFE a lot. It's I think NI is a bit the holy grail, you know. I know that with my SETI, if my NI will be really strong, I can move mountains, and because sometimes I run up the mountain, but it's the wrong mountain. And with strong NI, you can target. You know, you have this visualization of what you should do, and then with your SETI, you can make it happen. So, to me, NI is really special.
I mean, I think your dominant function for a lot of people you just kind of take for granted. So, but SC is how I have fun. So that's a big one, obviously.
Yeah, I could not do without it. Yeah. But it's a given. Yeah.
But my NI is it's funny because I think even this week I try to remind myself is like, how would I get in touch with my NI? And I think about maybe I'm driving or I'm lifting weights, and it's like I'm gonna do like Jordan Peterson's future authoring program or something, or just write down your goals for whatever. And it's like I can only do it for like 10 minutes, and then it's like after this is just a dream. Like I don't know, I can only have these few goals, and if I have like a big goal, it's still like there's so much of it that's still nebulous, and I don't know how I'm gonna get there. So it's kind of like because my predictions on things aren't very good. Like even for this interview, like you write down certain things that might come up or not come up, and it's your expectation of it is just very different. I
just wing it. I don't even prepare for.
And yeah, I'm usually better at. I think it's because my introvertedness has actually kind of slowed me back at certain things, because I've had to realize that if I try to prepare something, it's worse than if I just do it. It's like, and it feels, I think since most of my family are introverts too, it feels like I should prepare for something, but a lot of times I'm over preparing for something. And I need to get connected with my NI, but also my SE is my superpower. So it's kind of like you have to, it's just about balance. So it's like you go with what's your strongest, but you also need to balance it out. Like I'm never going to be an INTJ. That's not good. Like for me to try to aspire to be one, that's not going to work. So,
but there's sometimes I think that if you realize that one of my best crewmates were an INFJ and INTJ, you know, with SE in the fourth position in the main state, then I think if they can be so good, you know, in an SE activity like race rowing, then we must sometimes also recruit our NI, and it can be potentially really strong, but it's just that we don't activate it hours in a day. But I had some ideas also on macro investments I did, which were really good NI concepts. I don't think they were TI rational ideas, so that they came at one moment to my brain, and you know, that it popped up. So to me, it's an NI idea, and so I think that it's people undervalue that or underestimate, I think, our NI. It's not present. It's also not easy to recruit. We cannot do it easily on purpose, because you need to have to isolate your SE, to basically deprive it from a sensory stimulus to get into this kind of NI state. Well, I always need the sensory stimulus. I'm usually listening to a podcast when I'm doing something else, you know. So you have stimulus from action, stimulus from the things going on in your ear, and you're thinking about it. So it's SETI all the time, and there's not much room for NI. So
that's what's going to be. That's why it's so important to have a goal that you're super excited about, because it forces you to work on your weaknesses. Because you're going to run into things problems you have to take care of, and nobody cares about your goal as much as you do. And if you hit a wall, and you want it enough, you're gonna be forced to grow. So it's kind of like even just building my business, even before finding out about type, like talking to Shannon from Objective Personality, she's like, wow, I mean, me seeing that video and understanding you enough as a person, I feel like you've had to develop your FE a lot to do what you do now. So it's kind of like, and a lot of my business has just been force of will. It's just, there's so many mistakes, there's so many unforeseen things that you just kind of force your way through it.
That's my training as well. It's so many times I thought, okay, that was not a smart thing to do.
I was like, okay, this was supposed to take 3 hours, now it's taking 3 days, but whatever, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I'm writing a book right now, and under the SC section, it's written force of will. Like I call it, like there's a part where we call it force of will in a way, because it just kind of like does things, just do it. And so, what are some things that are misunderstood about ESTPs?
I think the bullying thing. When I was at high school, this was the second school after the first one was not a success. There were 3 guys in my class who were really terrorized by a guy who doubled the class. So he was a year older and he was a boxer. And I think he was just in a bad state and therefore so frustrated that he had to basically bully others. I cannot explain it in another way. But I found it really irritating, and then I stepped up to the bully to protect basically these 3 guys, these classmates, which were relatively weak physically. And even my best friend, an ISTP, I know him from primary school, so we go back like 4 decades. And he was bullied by somebody else, and also him, I protected him, so we became friends forever. So I can be a bully, and there was a guy who drove a team I built in the office. I spent 7 years to build a super team, and then there was a reorganization and a new supervisor or manager. He drove the team basically into the ground, and we lost them. And very talented people, 2 of them even quitted their jobs without having another job. Well, to him I was a bully. I told him what I found about him, and he went to HR to complain about me. So, okay, then I'm okay to be a bully. I think if it would not have been a big company with a lot of rules, I would have kicked him out of the window. But after seeing him destroying a whole good team with fantastic people, I was fed up with it. And I already tried via his manager. When he started, I approached him in a friendly way, and he said, "Oh, this is my team, mind your own business." So that was the first thing which I didn't like about him. And then if he would have done a good job, I would have tolerated it, and it would not have been a problem. But he didn't do a good job, and then I want to basically take action and then change it. And then you find the nasty bully ate against you, because if people work against us and or boxes in or things like that, we can be bullies. But I think it's not a fair stereotype to say ESTPs are bullies.
Yeah. So are ESTP bullies, or are people weak? We'll never know. I'm kidding, because like they're weak because they can't handle the feedback.
Well, I think this is a great topic, because I've bullied and I've been bullied. So I think in 9th grade I was actually bullied a lot, but it's probably more from older ESTPs and ESTJs, or kind of like that stereotype. But it was more just kind of like high school stuff where you were acting tough, like who's the toughest type thing. Like somebody's girlfriend thought I was cute or something, and things kind of followed that a little bit, where the high school environment is so, you think everything is so important, everything is so urgent, the world is so small. Like everything gets kind of built up. People talk to each other, and everyone's antagonizing each other and spreading rumors. But the last time I ever bullied somebody, I was probably in like 11th grade, and I had a friend who got into fights all the time. I mean, egregiously bullied somebody was we were playing flag football, and it was probably some type of ENTP or something like that, who just kept saying these horrific, like these stupid jokes, and like saying stuff about like your mama jokes and all this other stuff. And to me, I took it as like, I don't know. It was just kind of over the top for me. So I went in the locker room and I just went up and punched him in the face, and he was terrified. And it was like, he did not expect me to do that. And it was kind of like, and I felt horrible the rest of the day. And it was like, violence wasn't even in his mind. Like, why would I take it that far? Like, I just felt terrible. And then it's like, that was like the last time I ever did that. But the people around me were kind of like that. And a lot of times when we got into fights, it was like a bunch of people and everyone's kind of pushing each other, doing whatever. But that on a personal thing kind of made me feel so much different about what this is, because I think ESTPs, like, or eights, like, we're more comfortable with violence and it feels like more of a natural thing. And most people are like, just like seeing how terrified he was, and like that he wasn't threatening me, like he was joking, or he was being somebody who was antagonistic and all that. But it's like, I didn't need to take it that far. Like, why did I do that? But then that's kind of reinforced because people in school heard that I did that, and like all my friends thinking I'm tough and I'm cool. So it's kind of like reinforced some of that stuff, and you can see how that stuff happens. But after that, I never did anything like that because it just felt terrible. Like, it's like,
yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. In ESTP 807, they has very strong boundaries. So just don't mess with us. You will just notice that there's a kind of warrior inside us. You wake up when you do things like that, and that's typically when it happens. If you just leave us alone and don't bother us, no problem. But if you start throwing stones at us, then we basically destroy you, no problem.
and
I like the next question a lot right away, because the question is, how would you say your imagination works? And trying to come up with a story, and this immediately makes me think of all the difficult situations where I talked myself out of it. And this could be a fine a policeman wanted to give me, and I think it's mainly TIFE, because I read the person, so you get the kind of idea what kind of person is in front of you, and then your TI comes up with a very quick cunning plan, basically to talk yourself out of the situation. And I've been successful so many times in different situations where others were saying, hey, how is that possible? And even last Saturday, I was driving my car because I wanted to cut 2 trees. So I had a lot of stuff with me, like with chainsaw in the back and things like that. But we had a lot of ice in the Netherlands last weekend because it was so cold. And we were just a week ahead of Texas. And there were so many ice skaters on the lakes, and I had to go to an island with the trees. That the police stopped everybody who wanted to go to the lakes because they found it too crowded with this whole Corona thing going. And first, with the first check, I just went around it and went against traffic somewhere else, so I could cross a bridge. So that was already obstacle 1 I took by violating some traffic rules. But then there was another kind of not a policeman, but a guard with a yellow vest stopping me with a kind of gate, and I had to take that street to continue. And I said, "Come on! I just had to explain the policeman that I have to go to that place, and now you're stopping me again. I have to tell the whole story again." And they let me through. So it came up in my mind, I saw the guy, bam, it was there. It's kind of creativity to solve a situation, and it's TIFE if you ask me, and very quick in the moment. That's the SE part.
Yeah, it is super quick in the moment. And so Chris, he talked about reinforcement. So if you see an ESTP who is acting like a bully, it might be because of social reinforcement. Because of that FE, it can kind of be sensitive to social reinforcement too. So maybe it's like it could be a type of environmental influence as well. So always when someone, I guess, has a behavior, the lesson I'm trying to drive home is that it always comes from a deeper place. Like even the meanest people that you meet, it comes from somewhere. So all you have to do is kind of like figure out the root of that. And so for imagination, so with my ESTP brother, I've never actually heard him say like a story just that had nothing to do with real life. His stories always have to do with like real life.
But it can be super entertaining because one ISTP friend of me, he had an ESTP dad, and I would love to have a beer at his place because his dad always had crazy stories about all his adventures in life, and I recognize it now in myself that my son's friends also like to listen to the adventures I had in my life, because we do so many crazy things as ESTP that with cars and things like that, they just love it, and we can tell it in a spicy way because of our FE, I think, and we can make a really nice story. So
yeah, because I just think of my everyday life as mundane, but I mean, I could think of a lot of things where people would be like, what, did you really do that? That sounds insane. But and mostly it was from my early 20s, just being a crazy person. But it was but yeah, imagination, our imagination seems to be more like our NI goals or something we want to do. Like it's something connected to kind of the real world. It's not, because a lot of times I'll think about I could be a great artist, or I could do that, or I could do what ENTPs do or my INFPs do, and then you meet them and you understand why most of the artists are not ESTPs. I did write a paper in college before I knew typology, and I wrote it on Ernest Hemingway, who's one of the great ESTP writers, and like his language is so sharp and so concrete, but also very witty and all that too. But it's not, he's describing the world in like a very SE way. It's not imaginative really. It's colorful. I don't know if colorful is the right word either, but it's just kind of striking and kind of gritty in a way. It's there's no kind of a realness that we kind of see that everyone else thinks is kind of maybe nihilistic, or we don't see it as nihilistic. We don't see it as gross or ugly. We just kind of see it as reality, and it's kind of and sometimes I have to kind of hold back my own thoughts on certain things because it makes people feel kind of, I don't know, just it's not colorful enough for them. It's not kind of sugar coated enough for them. So it's hard. But imagination, like I don't know what else to say about imagination.
Yeah, that is true. I accidentally, so the next question I was supposed to ask was the SE-FE loop, but then I clicked out of it and now it's lost in the sea of comments. So I guess we'll just answer it without it being over there. And I can kind of start off. Okay, so this is like unhealthy SE-FE, and maybe not all ESTPs will relate to this, but I do see this behavior in ESTPs. So okay, with my brother, what I noticed is that, like, okay, for example, we'll be listening to a talent show and like a singer will sing and it's like a beautiful, beautiful song. And my brother's like, this is the best song ever. I love it. It's like amazing. And then he shows everyone, he's like, this is the best singer ever. And then the singer sings a different song, but in his SE, it's not as good as the first one. Later, like he completely is emotionally fickle and he goes like, it's not so great. No, it like kind of sucks. So what I noticed with some ESTPs, because of the SE-FE, what will happen is they will have like a really strong emotional opinion about something one day, and then the next day they'll be like, oh, you know what? That singer was horrible. My brother does this with restaurants too. So it's like one day he'll go like, this is the best restaurant on the face of this earth. And then one day they'll serve something that's not as fresh as the other days. And then he'll completely like flip the switch and he'll be like, you know what? This ain't that good. And then like, I don't know. It's almost like
Can I summarize it that we live at high intensity, but in the present? So basically, what we feel now is what we really intensely feel. And if it's good now, we really like it. If it's not good now, we don't like it anymore. And it's also about people. It's we don't look that much at the past. We don't think that much about the future. We are really present.
Yeah, it's one thing that and I think another reason why we don't want to share our feelings because it's so nebulous and fickle, and we don't really have a great grasp of it or a great memory of it, anyways. So it's. I don't like to seem inconsistent, and it's a struggle to not seem inconsistent. At least like my TI is consistent, but kind of these feelings or like third slot FE is probably not going to have. There's no. There's probably not going to be a whole lot of consistency there either. So it's kind of like when I first took the 16 personality tests, I got ESTJ, and I think that was kind of my because I wanted to. I saw myself as a kind of consistent, disciplined, non-fickle person for some reason, and I realized really quick that I'm not an ESTJ, but it was I'm kind of insecure about the fact that I can't say I like something from day to day, like in a real way. Like I'm always looking or switching or kind of like it's kind of hard. Like it's like, oh, I'm gonna have this for dinner today, and then I'll change my mind like later. I try to nail down as much as I can, but I just can't. So it's kind of it's kind of interesting.
That's a general like SE thing, or even like a perceiver thing. Like, okay, so because you guys like stories, in the comments section, I'll give a story. My mother, like how you can tell she's an SE dom is like when she's cooking, you can tell in the moment she's adjusting her cooking. Like the moment she's pouring in something into the dish, it's a in the moment calculation. It's not like something she planned beforehand. It's kind of like a on the whim. She's kind of like thinking about it as she goes. So with SE, it's like adapting as things emerge. It's like taking opportunities as they present themselves on the fly. And that's how you can tell if someone is an SE dom or just like a general perceiver with any or SE higher up. You'll see that they don't have like a fleshed out plan, but they're more of a improvisational.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't get depressed very quickly. If I look at all the ESTPs I know, they generally, I would say, more happy compared to the ISTPs, who are sometimes in this NITI loop of doom, and then yeah, it's very difficult to cheer them up. It's just yeah.
I realized pretty early in life that that my emotions are going to go away pretty quickly. So like I'm sure we still have moments where it's like, whoa, this is awful, but then I realize it's just going to be gone very fast. Like that horrible feeling of if it's an emotional reaction or something like that, it's going to be gone really fast. So if there's a terrible situation or if there's somebody sick in the family, we're going to have moments where it hits us, but then it's just going to be gone. So it's when I'm sad, I'm really sad, but it's for a very short period of time. So you just kind of bounce back. So that's probably the plus side of it. So.
I like it on Chris.
Oh, what was that?
We're bounce back people. I like that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is so true. Yeah, resilience. And so I'm going to take like one or two more questions and then we're going to end the panel. And so do you feel like your FE is a performance that you need to put on?
For me, it's genuine, but it can drain you if you do it too much. But I really like to FE. And yeah, for example, if we get new talent in a group, I'm the first one to walk to the person to welcome them and to make them feel comfortable in the team and to explain things and just yeah, I use FE a lot and I like it. It is to me it's not forced, but there is a prioritization. A TI overrules sometimes FE. Then I think, come on, let's be not too soft. We need also to do things in a TI way, and it can be sometimes really a bit of an internal battle. That's more so it doesn't feel like a performance, but sometimes my FE feels like it's playing second violin, and the TI wins, and then FE is a bit frustrated about it probably, but yeah, TI is strong.
Yeah, I'm having weird thoughts here about kind of, I guess, the stereotype about the ESTP like party person. It's like we're setting up a party for you to have fun. Like we're not telling you what to do. We're creating the environment to where you can have SE fun. It's like we're not performing in a way. I mean, we can perform, but it's like I'm trying to create this bubble around you where you can have freedom and fun and not kind of stop thinking, stop feeling, just have fun, or just, I mean, that doesn't really make sense, but just kind of like,
I like
I
it.
don't know.
I also like to
You can
create
kind of be free.
an environment where people can thrive, where they can be happy, where they can perform, where they can grow to the best version of themselves. That's what I like to do. Create an environment. So I'm shaping the world for a team, and that's in the office and also with rowing. When I organize these events, when we go racing with different teams, it's just you create an environment where everybody can basically perform well and perform with a team. So yeah.
I don't know, you think about ESFPs as the performers, and that kind of makes sense, where a performance is actually kind of internal.
My mom is an ESFP 7 wing 8, and she's really performing. She would be at the middle of the dance floor in a shiny dress, being the star of the evening and enjoying it a lot. So that was really a performance.
So a lot of performers actually have pretty high FI, I would think. It's like, so FE is, it really is about giving, but it can be kind of shallow at the same time. Like you're not, I mean, like anything else. But
The way we like to perform is to show that we are professionals, that we're really good in the job. That's the STP way of performing. You know, an ISTP who tunes a car so it runs really well. It's a different kind of performing, but that's how we like to be seen. I like to perform as a race rower, to really show that I master that skill.
Yeah, if the perform is to make sure your car doesn't break down, or you're competent, things aren't falling apart around you.
I know an ISTP who is basically fixing engines when they break a piston or a camshaft, something like that, and the engine is completely ruined, and the dealer brings the engine to him at the pallet, and he has like $500,000 on equipment and he loves to do the most complex projects because there he can show that he is the best in the world on fixing these engines. And so that's the way he likes to perform, and he would put a Facebook picture of that engine before and after, and that's his way of performing. So,
but it would be interesting. I mean, Spencer's been gone for a while, but how a 7 would describe, maybe FE a little bit differently. Is FE a little bit differently? So.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. And so would ESTPs consider it a waste of time to prepare?
It's not a waste of time, but at least I'm too impatient. That's it.
Well, to me, I've realized, because I don't know why I got into maybe a little bit of a TI loop. That's kind of the consumed sleep, to where if I prepare over what I need to, which the threshold is pretty low, I don't need to prepare that much. I do need to prepare, but over a certain point, it's not. Most of it isn't going to stick anyways, and my expectations of the situation isn't even going to align anyways. It's a kind of a waste of time. Like it's because I'd be better off hiring an INTJ to help me out with preparing something, who are going to be able to.
And I have an ENTJ boss, and he drives me nuts because he wants me to prepare everything and to make PowerPoint presentations how I'm going to do something. Well, I always went into negotiations for the last 20 years just by winging it, and I'm really good in negotiating that way. So I don't want to follow a script, because that to me is too rigid, and it's basically placing boundaries around me, like I'm driving at the train track and cannot take any other direction than following the track. So That's from that perspective, I just don't like it.
Absolutely. That is so true.
There's one
if
thing
I'm
we
silent,
like to do, Joyce, sorry for interrupting you, but before we cut this off, I know a lot of ESTP or STP preppers. So basically, we like to be prepared for any situation, anything which can happen to us. So take now Texas. I have one ISTP friend in Houston. When the power went out, his generator started up and he just continued living. And he has heat, he has electricity because he's fully prepared. And that resonates fully with me because I also have deep cycle batteries in the garage. I have solar panels who feed the batteries and who also work when the power grid falls out. I have a generator, all this kind of stuff. So that's the kind of way we like to prepare. My ISTP brother is exactly like that. And so we can be preppers, but it's a different kind of preparing than having a plan. It's more like you prepare that you can handle any situation in your life. So that's also why you want to be financially independent. I heard it Chris say earlier. You want to be independent by not working for a boss. Yeah, it all has to do with this. And you don't want to be, especially as an 8, you don't want to be a victim of the circumstances. You know, you want to be strong. If there's a hurricane, if there's a deep freeze, if your car crashes, it will not bother us because we are stronger than it. That's the way we like to prepare.
Yeah, luckily my mom's a prepper, so I feel like I'm covered. But one of my goals is to have a because I'm in one of the most concentrated places in the world. So if something goes wrong, like there's a lot of people here, so that's not good. So having, a place in South Dakota or Montana or something, like just to have another house somewhere. I mean, that sounds great. Like if things go wrong, especially if you can see them happening in the cities or wherever, like we do have that thought process for sure. And
I have it as well. Yeah, I have a place I can go if shit would hit the fan over here.
And thinking about imagination too, like this is actually a little bit dark, but like me and Taylor were talking about something, and I think I was talking about like a girlfriend of mine asked me about, like, we're watching like a zombie movie or something, and she asked me some question, and it made me realize that like fantasies of being in a very chaotic, horrible situation, like I feel like I could handle that situation. It's kind of like I would be at the top of that hierarchy, and part of my brain kind of realizes that would almost be exciting, even though it's a ridiculous thought to have. It's
exactly the discussion I had with my youngest ISTP brother when this coronavirus started to spread from China all over the world. We were calling each other for like hours a day just to run the scenarios. And he is stronger than I do, and we were just going to scenario, and we were just excited, which sounds a bit cruel maybe to an FI user, but for us there was action, and we could have a robust TI discussion on what we could do, and we also both took actions with trades, which worked out really well. So just because we had already kind of a game plan, for it, and we were not seeing it as victims, but we just saw it as a kind of opportunity, which would present. Typically, in every crisis, there's an opportunity. I think that fits well with STPs because we don't look only at the doom side, but we also look at the positives in things.
Yeah, I feel like if you had to live from like as cowboys, like from 200 years ago, it's like that sounds fine.
I have to say that the thing which looked most exciting to me when I saw the television was when they had this big flood in Texas, and there were these guys from far away who took their boat on a trailer to Texas and who were rescuing people, and I wanted to be there on one of those boats. I've a small motorboat myself, and I would have loved to do that. That's so cool, you go there just from house to house, you rescue people from the roofs. That really excited me too. And to see that warmed me up. That was really an FESE thing.
Cool. Okay, and last question. What is one thing you like about Joyce? Time to use FE and not as a tool.
Oh. um, yeah, I mean it's tough not to use it to use my TI and be
The
how to
first
say
thing that
something.
happens is all TI reasons. So
Just make her feel really good, like a ESFJ would. Tell her she has beautiful hair and her eyes are gorgeous and she's
but
But
I've
yeah.
watched quite many sessions you did, Joyce, with different types, and I think you are a very good facilitator, whatever people are in the interview, and you always know to make them comfortable and to give their thoughts. So it's nice to see how you do it. So you really use your skills as an INFJ.
Well, there's I guess I could say something nice that is SETI that just I see at the end of a lot of end of her talks. I'm not sure if Joyce kind of feels the awkwardness when she's complimenting everybody, but she kind of goes through it, and then eventually everyone kind of, takes a breath and is like, okay, I'm going to accept these compliments. And she's very good at.
For most, it's too much.
Because it's great because it's very endearing too, even though like to kind of single everyone out and give them compliments and what she appreciates about all of this is very nice and very important, even if it's a little bit tough for some people to accept those compliments, and it makes
Words
everyone
of affirmation.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I was like,
Yeah.
I was gonna say like you have nothing. Like I thought we connected during our typing session, and then you're like, oh, I have nothing.
Oh no, well that's why I kind of liked if you recorded it, because there's so much I forget. There's so many connections I don't make. I'm just kind of going through it, enjoying myself. Like that's why I've watched my video with Taylor twice. It's not you, it's me. Like a lot of the NI, making those NI connections as we're going is very hard. Like you just kind of, unless we're doing very high intense SE things, like a lot of it doesn't really stick to make those connections. So
Yeah, that is so true. And it's kind of like NITI, flow state, and NI, we call it nonverbal knowing. There's a long story behind that. and so thank you both for coming out and sharing your ESTP's perspective. And thank you, audience members, for watching this video. I know that all my videos are like movie length, and I really appreciate you guys like having the attention span during, the instant gratification culture. Like you guys still tune in and watch these hellishly long videos. Like that's commitment. That means that you like really care about the show, and I really care about you guys because you guys really care about this whole endeavor, and that warms my heart a lot. So thank you for watching these movie length type of videos. Your endurance to everyone is very admirable. I am shocked, but very touched by everyone. And
thanks,
so,
Joyce, for arranging this. And,
yeah, thank you so
I
much.
think the audience had many really good questions. So
the questions were stellar. Yeah, spot on. And there were some SE DOMs in the chat from videos too. So that was really nice to see. Yeah. And Taco, what I really like about you is that you're resilient, and whenever like something happens, you never take it as a failure. You just see it as incentive to readjust. And so you have a very
you
positive.
Or you learn. That's what they typically say. So you never lose.
Yeah.
You never fail.
Yeah. I like your constant persistence with trying and trying again when things don't work. Everyone could learn a little bit from that. It's kind of like if things don't go as planned, to use it as an opportunity to calibrate and to change your approach as opposed to giving up. So I think it tells a story to everyone to, keep trying until it actually works. So yeah, I really admire that about you, Taco. It's what makes you great at sports. And you're rowing. And Chris, what I really like about you is like you show the chiller side of the ESTPs. Like you're more on the, like the stereotypically like colloquial, my pronunciation, like side of seeming like an introvert, like the pop culture, but you're really like an extrovert. And I think it's a really good case study for people who have like a friend who is like an ESTP who is like slightly on the quieter side. So Carl Jung goes, like people who, you know, study Carl Jung go by the cognitive functions, and you are 100% an SE lead. Like you definitely lead with SE, like no doubt, like ESTP for sure. And I think you're a really good representation of a cool case for that. And I really like how people just have an ease with talking to you. Like you tell me that, you know, a server will pass by and you'll talk to them and you'll captivate them in conversation. And then you guys will end up talking a lot. So yeah, thank you for that charm. SE is very adaptable and it causes this natural charm. And I really like that. and so thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. I also appreciate the times that where we talk too. I appreciate like all of your interesting stories, Chris. Yeah. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. You guys need a gold star or a platinum trophy for attention spans. Like I need to reward all of you. And I love y'all, and I'll see y'all in the next episode.
All right, thank you, Joyce. Thank you so much.